Hi everyone, glad you're here. Today I'm unpacking a pricing revamp I led at Narvar. Narvar is a leader in post purchase software used by the top retailers in the world. Everything you'll hear in this video comes from my case study published in the book Price to Scale second edition. You can find the book on Amazon. The book also has 15 other SaaS case studies, and you might want to consider getting that. I will put the link to the book in the description. Here's the backstory. I joined Narvar in 2019 to lead product marketing, and the main focus was going to be on pricing because a recent pricing revamp that the company had done was not very successful. What did I inherit? The launch included these really cookie cutter packages, a set of 13 packages across three product lines that was SMB ish, but our sales motion was mostly mid market and enterprise. So this made them very inflexible and not mapped to the market whatsoever. This was completely disjoint. Because of this, average selling prices were falling across every tier. This was bad because revenue was being impacted. And long tenured reps were just saying, I'm not going to use this. And they came up with their own pricing. And newer reps felt like they had to follow the new model, but they got the short end of the stick on deal value because the ASPs were lower. An example of what would happen is a customer would want a simple add-on for a couple $1,000 for a deal that was six figures. Now the existing package would not support that, so they needed to upgrade to another package, but the upgrade was 50 to 60% more expensive. That was a no-go. And also the CRO who had rolled this out, she left in 4 to 5 months upon joining the company. So she left a mess. There was nobody to champion this thing, and revenue was falling. So we had to fix this. So before tinkering with the number, there are only two or three main decisions: the packaging, the pricing metric, and price point in the main decisions. The metric had not changed. It was still the number of orders shipped. The real blocker was packaging. The inflexibility in the tier caused unnatural selection. If a particular tier didn't work, a higher tier would be selected and then severely discounted. That also caused shelfware. The packaging was really the key issue. So then I ran a bunch of one-on-one debriefs with the sellers, and they walked me through their closed won and closed lost opportunities and the pricing dynamics that happened. Now, in some of those deals, they were closed lost because of this reason, because the price point was too high and it contained features that they didn't need. And then I had to also mediate between our SVP of sales and the CEO, because the CEO was being relentlessly pushed by our growth stage VC to prepare for IPO. He had brought on a CFO. There was a rev rec issue that had to be solved. The pricing needed to be simple, and he was pretty certain. But that was not our motion. The motion was bespoke enterprise sales. And this was the key dynamic that had to be negotiated, and we had to meet in the middle, right? The SVP of sales needed to have her problem solved, and the CEO needed to really have the rev rec problem solved. But this had to be found out after a lot of conversations. And when I crunched the numbers, I saw that the discounts rates were going up for certain packages were not being selected. ASPs overall were lower, and there was a lot of shelfware because this was also blocking our upsell paths. So the data was validating some of the problems mentioned. So I outlined a few principles for the revamp. There needed to be flexibility inside the tiers. Customers needed to be able to select a tier and then move within that without necessarily upgrading to the next tier that was 30 to 50% more expensive. No feature within a tier would be something that would be forced for a customer. We did not want shelfware, because if there's shelfware, customers are buying something that they're not going to use. And then the front end would need to still feel bespoke to the clients, where the back end would solve the internal issue. So that is how we would negotiate the problem between what the CEO wanted and the SVP of sales. Retain flexibility and bespokeness, but have packages on the back end that allowed for all of the rev rec and the repeatability. And finally, the operational ease always beats theoretical purity. So we wanted all of our sellers to use this. Quoting had to be easy. So what changed? Number one, rationalization on the number of packages. So many times for one product line, if there are 4 to 5 packages and only a couple of market segments, that doesn't make sense. Why would we have that? A rationalization of packages was needed to have a more direct mapping between the packages and the segments themselves. There are things such as premium support that was previously only in the top tier. So if you wanted good support, you had to buy the top tier and then make it feel severely discounted. So we allowed for that to be add-on that people could buy separately. And finally, another effect of the number of tiers was that entry-level plans were priced too low. This was in line with SMB pricing and packaging, such that a lot of reps would start to double the list price, and we wouldn't have discounting, we would have negative discounting. So we had to fix this problem because reps want to make money too, right? And the list price for the entry level plans were too low. So rationalization solved that problem. And finally, a very scalable pricing calculator was very helpful because the reps were quickly able to create quotes and provide that to their clients. And that was a key element of us being able to get buy-in. If the calculator was too complex or if we brought in CPQ too early, there would have been pushback. Now, we did eventually get CPQ, but there was adoption and recognition that the pricing worked at that point. In the results, which something that was very important, 100% sales adoption. And why was 100% sales adoption needed? So that we could have a rev rec thing that was working, right? The company needed to be ready for IPO. Average selling prices then increased 15 to 40% across different tiers. And the problem that the previous model had created was solved. And many of the reps cited the new calculator as a reason they embraced the change because it was simple enough and scalable enough for them to use. So again, operational ease is very important when you're rolling out a new strategy. What are the real world lessons? Many pricing problems are not fancy problems. They're actually packaging problems. The key metric, the value proposition, customer base, all of that was fine. But the alignment mechanism between the market and the offer was the packages, and that needed solving. It's a lot of this is about alignment between how the reps sold and the packages, alignment between the CEO and the SVP of sales, alignment between what the company needs and what the VC needs, right? At a certain level of scale, pricing is all about alignment. And it's also important to note that you can't ramrod a big pricing change. Many times, as a consultant, we speak with companies. They want to roll out things fast. But if you do it too fast, it's going to blow up in your face. And enablement is super important. Training the sellers, making sure they understand it, making sure they understand the impact of this on their sales compensation. That is key to really nailing it down. It also shows that this isn't all about fancy things like usage-based pricing or outcome-based pricing or Gen AI models, things that you're reading in LinkedIn. It's about listening, understanding what the goals are, aligning, and coming up things from first principles, right? This is what really worked. I would encourage a lack of a reliance on the trends or on what competitors are doing or on what LinkedIn influencers are saying, and focusing more on what is happening on the ground in your business, what are the different viewpoints that have to be aligned, and that is the key to success of any pricing project. Thank you so much. I'll put the link in the description. I hope you get the book. If you want to engage with us for a consulting project, I'll put our meeting booking link as well.